Hi and welcome back. This module is on working in the shell. The exam leans very heavily on the command line, so apart from the command line being a must for any admin, it's also very important for the exam to have as much hands-on with the command line interface as possible. So what we'll be doing in this module is the following. First, we'll have a look at what a shell actually is. Then we'll discuss execution and sourcing. And this is a key topic in the exam, so you should really get to grips with that. We will also have a look at some important variables in the shell and what they're used for. Then we'll make sure that these variables are available in all the shells that we start after we've logged in. So we're going to be talking about local variables and environment variables and how you can list those. This is also a key topic. And particular scripts are executed when a user logs in to kind of tweak the shell environment at login time. The su command or switch user command can be used to become a different user without having to log out and log in again. The switch user command is a very old command, and there's a good replacement for that, which we will discuss in another module. Next, we'll look at some simple and common things which cannot be taken for granted. So we will pay attention to how commands are structured, how to use the tab key for completion, and what the difference between an absolute and relative path name is. Now, I've mentioned a couple of times that this module is occupied with some key topics, so most of what is discussed in this module can be questioned on the exam. By the way, this goes for all of the modules that will follow from here. So first we have to discuss what a shell actually is. A shell is a program that is started when the user logs in and functions as the interface between the user and the rest of the operating system. The default shell that is used in most Linux distributions is Bash and comes from the GNU project. Bash stands for Born Again Shell. Even though this Bash shell is very popular, there are many more shells you can choose from. There's the C shell, the Z shell, the Korn shell, the ASH shell or Almquist shell, and many more. Some shells are installed by default and others can be installed later. But again, the default shell in most Linux distros is the Bash shell. Now when you create a user and the user logs in, he will be granted a shell. This is configured in the file /etc/password or passwd. We'll have a look at that in a second. If the user is granted the bin false shell or the sbin no login shell, then the user will not be able to log in. And if you temporarily want to disable all users from logging in, you could also create an empty file which is called /etc/no-login. As long as this file is there, no user will be able to log in except the root user. And as you probably know, root is the boss or administrator of the system. The shell will allow a user to type commands, and these commands will then be executed. So the shell will prompt you to type commands and then will display the output and errors to the terminal. Now let's have a quick look at that. So what we'll be doing is we'll be looking at the command id, who am I, cat, and touch. So from my MacBook, I will log into Linux One as Peter, as myself, so to say. So I type the password and I'm in. And you see my prompt. Now when I type clear, I will clear my screen. Ctrl L will do the same. So I type Ctrl L and I clear the screen, or I use clear. So both are okay. Then I run the command print working directory, and this will tell me where am I in my file system. And obviously this is a directory that I enter when I log into the system. Now the ID command will tell you who you are. So my user ID is 2003, and obviously my name Peter is connected to that ID. I also have a group ID, and the group ID is also 2003, and I could belong to multiple groups. At this moment I only belong to one single group. The rest of this information you can ignore. This has got to do with security, we'll talk about later. Then if I want to have a different command to show my identity, I can run who am I, or I can run who am I with spaces. Well, obviously this tells me a little bit more. It says that I'm Peter and I'm logged into terminal PTS1, which stands for sudo terminal 0. Since what time did I log in? and what was the IP address that I used to connect from. Now, who am I could also be spelled who am capital I, or who are you, or to make a long story short, it doesn't really matter. As long as the who command has 2 arguments, it will give you the same output, whatever you type. So I clear the screen. Now when I run the cat command and open the password file, it will show me at the last line, in this case, that there's a user called Peter, and that user has a login directory which is /home/Peter, and the shell that this user will get when he logs in is the bash shell. Now we'll discuss this file later when we talk about users, but for now you have to know that there is a user ID, there's a group ID, and we have already looked at those with the ID command. What strikes us is that there's an sbin no login for quite a few users. So obviously these users are not used to log in, but they're used for internal system connections. And the root user, as you can see at the top, and the root user also has the bash shell. So we exit and we log in as root because we want to create a file in the etc directory. And Peter is not allowed to write in the etc directory. So we list the no login file and we see it's not there. So we create it using the touch command. If you touch a file, that will create an empty file if it doesn't exist yet. If it exists, it will simply update the timestamp. So the file is there and we exit. Now we'll try to log in as Peter again. And obviously this will fail because that empty file is present. And just to double check, we do it again, and again it fails. So we log in as root again, and we deliberately type the incorrect password. So we have to try it again, type the correct password. And when we log in, it tells us that we had a failed login attempt since the last successful login. So it monitors that somebody tries to log in and it fails. So fortunately I did remember the password and I logged in as root. Now I can remove the etc login file because we want Peter to be able to log in again. So we remove the login file and Peter should be able to log into the system. So let's just check it. The file is gone, we exit and we log in as Peter again. So we clear the screen and we're done. In the next lecture we will have a look at executing and sourcing and the differences between that. And also we'll have a look at the path variable, which is a vital variable for working in the shell. I hope to see you in the next lecture.